A very good evening to you. And welcome along to another Sweet and Swing here on Manx Radio. My name's Howard Kane. Always a pleasure to have your company every other week with jumping in between. What have we got? Well, as we settle back to listen to our wireless, some more from that Petula Clark collection. Two Als for the price of one, Al Bowley and Al Cohn. Some Hubert Gregg on the sweet side of things. But to get us going, our Joe with what I think could well be an enchanted evening. Who had the longest career as a band leader in British dance music history. So the record books say in any case. Started as a violinist accompanying silent films, formed his first band while he was still in his teens, and became the youngest band leader in the West End of London at the age of 21, and still there at the forefront of the music business when he passed away some 60 years later. Yeah, Joe Loss, no stranger to the Isle of Man, of course, played many a season here. And it's true that when the band started out, the big bands in many ways, it was very much a case of being able to provide strict tempo music for dancing. So apart from the leader, who would be out front, of course, dressed immaculately, raising a baton to show who's in charge, the men in the band, and I think they virtually all were men, apart from Ivy Benson maybe, were pretty static. And the dancers, well, they might be formally dressed or maybe not, but the big question for the young fellows and their fancied ladies was whether they could do the latest dance craze, be it the ballet glide or a tango or a foxtrot. And Joe was there to provide them with exactly the right sort of music at the right time. And yes, 60 years, who'd have thought, going on for so long. And definitely played many a season. I don't know how many seasons, to be honest with you. I'm sure Morris Powell would tell me if I ask him next time I see him how many seasons he played here. Certainly more than one. More than 2 or 3, as far as I remember. But if you know better, if you've got great memories, why don't you share some with me? Love to hear them. We'll read them out on air. Howard Kane at manxradio.com. You know the address, dead easy. Howard Kane with an E at manxradio.com. And yeah, if you've got any thoughts of going to see Joe Loss at the Villa Marina back in the day, or dancing away, or meeting your partner, it'd be lovely to share a few of those on air, wouldn't it? Well, I think it would in any case. If you don't like email, if you're not one of the surfing generation, most are these days, lots of silver surfers, of course. You know, I know I'm a bit of an oldie, but there are people a lot older than me, far more technically efficient than I am. But still, if you're not one of those, and you want to put pen to paper, Howard Kane, still very welcome. Sweet and Swing, Manx Radio, Broadcasting House, Douglas Head, Douglas in the Isle of Man, and that postcode is IM15BW. Right, all aboard the train then. Not Chris Williams' time train tomorrow morning. This is the Chattanooga Choo Choo, but not with Glenn. This is actually with Harry Roy and the boys.
Pardon me, boy, is that the Chattanooga Choo Choo? Track 29. Boy, you can't give me a shine. I can't afford to board the Chattanooga Choo Choo. I've got my fare, and just a trifle to spare. You bought the Pennsylvania station about 3:45. Read a magazine and then you're in Baltimore. Dinner in the diner, nothing could be finer than to have your ham and eggs in Carolina. When you hear the whistle go an eighth of the bar, then you know the Tennessee is not very far. Shovel all the coal in, gotta keep it rolling. Woo-woo, Chattanooga, there you are. There's gonna be a certain party at the station. Satin and lace I used to call her face. He's gonna cry until I tell him that I'll never roam. So Chattanooga choo-choo, won't you choo-choo me home? Chattanooga choo-choo, won't you choo-choo me home?
Cymbal at the end. Great bit of piano playing as well, a nice sort of boogie sound with Harry Roy and the boys. Chattanooga Choo Choo. Annoyingly, no details on the vocalist. Who do you reckon? Don't know that I recognise it, to be honest with you, but got a good, clear voice. Not classic, but a good, clear voice, I must admit. Can you play it? Yeah, well, again, let me know if you're shouting at the radio saying, yes, it's XYZ, because at the moment I can't think who that is. And sadly, and annoyingly, the recording doesn't tell us either, which is a bit of a shame, isn't it? Harry himself, great player, of course, and again, talking about being out front of the band. He was a character, and I think that's what the audiences like quite often. He was a character, a cheeky chappy, looked a cheeky chappy, loved larking around, and was a good entertainer. Don't know if he was much of an instrumentalist particularly, but was a very good entertainer. Also, of course, you might well remember, as my friend and colleague Mr. Wint reminded me the other day, he rather liked some of the suggestive songs. Bearing in mind this is back in the 30s and 40s. So you might remember perhaps from just as the war was breaking out, She Had to Go and Lose It at the Astor. When Can I Have a Banana Again? Or perhaps from 1931, My Girl's Pussy. No doubt. All about his girlfriend's cat. We'll leave it at that. Can we get away with playing those on Sweet and Swing? We'll have a think. We've certainly got recordings of them. They were of their time and a bit George Formby-esque, actually. They're highly suggestive rather than rude. It just depends on how you want to interpret them. Yes. But he was a great entertainer. He was fronting his own band by the early 30s, Harry Roy, the RKOians, and broadcasting from the Café Anglais and also the Mayfair Hotel. And then, yes, in 1931, he wrote the aforementioned song, which has been the result of many cover versions and did all right for him, I must admit. And in 1935, he married Elizabeth Brooke, who was called Princess Pearl on stage, who was indeed the daughter of the White Raja of Sarawak, on the island of Borneo. And he appeared with her in 2 musical films. These would be worth digging out if you don't know them. Everything is Rhythm and Rhythm Racketeer. And also appearing in the former film were Roy's 2 pianists, one of whom we heard there, of course, Isa Morton, I think was playing there, and Dave Kay. Oh, good stuff, and a great entertainer as well. Could it have been Mary Lee? There we are, just looking through the list there. Could it have been Mary Lee singing? What do you reckon? Certainly young Mary Lee. She's got a very young voice there. I'm going with that. Shout out at me if I'm wrong, but I think that might have been Mary Lee. I'm guessing as much in any case. It is Sweet and Swing, and Mr. T will go to next. Jack Teagarden, Time for Tea, some recordings on the Naxos Jazz Legends label from between 1929 and 1953. And I quite like this one. I ain't lazy, I'm just dreaming.
Dreamin', oh, just dreamin'. Like to ramble on the road that never ends. Me and Mother Nature are the best of friends. Folks think that I'm lazy, I'm just dreamin'. Dreamin', just dreamin'. Always tell the daisies everything I've planned. When they nod their heads, I know they understand. Honest, I ain't lazy, I'm just dreamin'. I'm kind of pally with everything that grows. A little pose is in every rambling rose. From early morning till day comes to a close, I'm living in a world of my own. Just dreamin', oh, just dreamin'. Always looking for my rainbow in the sky. Funny when you're dreamin' how the time does fly. Honest, I ain't lazy, I'm just dreamin'.
Jack Teagarden, singing and playing. Got a great voice there, it has to be said. It's sort of imbued with character, I would say. Wonderful. Sort of sounds slightly rough. Sounds indeed like he might have had a few sherbets, which he was rather partial to, from all accounts. And a wonderful note in the liner notes. There's plenty, copious liner notes to this collection on the Naxos Jazz Legends. And a great story from Jack's brother Charlie Teagarden, who said when we were with the Paul Whiteman Band, and this would be in the late 20s, early 30s, we didn't know there was a depression going on. We were travelling first class everywhere we went. It's always the way, isn't it? There's those who have and those who have not. And Jack became a featured member of Paul Whiteman's organisation in December of 1933, and then Charlie joined the Whiteman Orchestra on Christmas Day, replacing one Bunny Berrigan. My word. Charlie talked about becoming a member in an interview in Melody Maker magazine in 1937. He said, Jack and I always got along pretty well, and soon we were in a permanent job together in Paul Whiteman's orchestra. I remember the date I joined Paul. It was Christmas night, 1933. My brother under contract until 1938. And he says, playing with a big band of this type, with very occasional opportunities to play swing music, makes more difference to a musician than people can possibly imagine. In the first place, you scarcely have any occasion to improvise, and this naturally puts you in completely out of gear as a swing man, and the lack of practice of that kind of work does make itself felt. Yet you'd forget that they'd be in the band. It was all strictly playing from the score. You wouldn't, by and large, unless maybe you had a solo, have any chance to improvise at all. It would be playing arrangements. So you become a very good reader, presumably, and very practiced, and very competent performer, but not necessarily improvising. Interesting point, it has to be said. Hubert Gregg. This one I dug out, blew a bit of dust off it. We have featured this a way back. Evergreen Melodies. Fits somewhere in between sweet and swing, I would say, this one. It's sort of jazzy, but sort of, yeah, it's nostalgic as well. Hubert Gregg, well, you might remember him through his programme on BBC. Was it Radio 2, I think it was? Thanks for the Memory. Recalling songs of the 20s, 30s and 40s. Mr. Nostalgia, he was known as. And with good wonder as well, because he wrote quite a few famous ones himself. Perhaps the most famous of all. Maybe it's because I'm a Londoner. That is one of Hubert's. We could hear that, but I thought, you know what, let's hear one of his lesser-known ones. If only for the title alone. My canary has circles under his eyes. I bet he does.
Since making whoopee became all the rage, it's even got into the old bird cage, and my canary has circles under his eyes. He used to whistle the prisoner's song, now he does snake hips the whole day long, and my canary has circles under his eyes. There was a time he was satisfied to flit among the flowers, but now when I let him out, he'll hide up in the trees for hours. Won't eat his bird seed, it's really a sin. Won't do a thing without a slug of gin, and my canary has circles under his eyes. His only pals are the yellow lark and just a tiny sparrow, but I'm afraid when he's in the park, he leaves the straight and narrow. Aversion to birdseed distinctly denotes his morbid preference for wild, wild oats, and my canary has circles under his eyes. Circles under his eyes.
His preference for wild, wild oats. Yeah, I think we could have a bit of double entendre going on there as well. You wouldn't call him a classic singer, but he was certainly a classic composer and entertainer. Hubert Gregg, the man who lit up London with a song, with I think you can safely call that one a novelty number. Yes, I think we can call it a novelty number, can't we? My canary has circles under his eyes. And yeah, I think a bit of tongue-in-cheek and double entendre associated with that one. It's distinct style he's got there singing. Not, again, you're not going to call him a singer, a great singer, are you? But it is a distinct voice and a great composer himself. Good entertainer throughout. Hubert Gregg. Now then, what did I say about owls? Yes, we've got 2 owls for the price of 1. So now's the time you can go and put the kettle on, go and top up your glass or whatever the case may be. If you want to wander around, go and pay a call of nature. Whatever suits your fancy at this time of the evening. We're going to have 2 owls for the price of 1. We'll start off with Al Cohn, and then we'll segue seamlessly into the great Al Bowley. And Al Cohn is here to tell us it's a wonderful world.
A little sentimental tune, a melody I love to croon. I'm happy when I'm singing a little love song to you. As twilight falls and lights are low, 'tis then my heart is all aglow. I hear the breezes singing a little love song to you. It hasn't got a stirring strain, nor classic words by a poet of fame, but every note just plays a part to show the passion that's in my heart. Just like the stars up in the sky, that melody will never die. Now all the world is singing a little love song to you.
Wonderful stuff, and I'm loving the sound of the needle on the 78 there as well from that transcription. Al Bowley with a little love song, and Al, it's so distinctive, that voice, isn't it? It's just so distinctive. There is a wonderful, I'm trying to think of his name, I've seen him once or twice on television, a young chap who does, basically he impersonates Al Bowley. He dresses like Al Bowley, he has his entire repertoire, he looks a bit like him, sounds remarkably like him. I hope he gets lots of work, he deserves to, because he's so good. Close your eyes, it could be the man himself. Al himself, the real Al Bowley, of course, as we know, sadly killed in 1941 during the sort of the Blitz, or certainly one of the many air raids on London, dozens and dozens. And he was in his flat, killed by a landmine. But sang and recorded with virtually all the top bands, really. Lou Stone, Jack Jackson, Billy Cotton, Geraldo, Nat Ginella, Harry Hudson, Sidney Lipton, Mantovani, Carol Gibbons, DuBois Summers, Jay Wilbur, Morris Winnick, on and on it goes. He was often top of the pops from that point of view, and understandably you can understand why that's the case. Happily, lots of recordings of his still left, of course, and still very popular. I think his voice, particularly in this genre, has to be the most easily recognised as well, isn't it, by a country mile, I thought. Wonderful. And before that, Al number one was Al Cohn. Again, he was in the rare list of musicians in this programme who I did actually meet and saw play many a year back now at the original Pizza Express, I think it was, in Dean Street with the old maestro. I remember watching Al Cohn play there. Very fine he was too. And in that case, he was with his quintet with Zoot Sims. Always a great name, I think, Zoot Sims. Zoot is a good name. A Wonderful World was the song. Zoot Sims and Al Cohn on sax. And then Mose Allison on piano, would you believe? Teddy Kotick, bass. Nick Stabulus at the drums. And that's from 1957 over there in New York. Would have been good to have been in the States in the 1950s and 60s to see some of these great jazz players. Although, of course, the thing is, as was being remarked the other day in discussion with someone, I forget who, that you never know when you see a performance whether it's going to be classic. So people who were at maybe Carnegie Hall when Benny Goodman was there, or at the Massey Hall concert with Charlie Parker and co., or any of the recordings of John Coltrane at the Village Vanguard or Bill Evans there, they probably would have enjoyed it. There's plenty of polite applause, but it was just another gig at the time. Now, 50, 60, 70 years on, they attain classic status, cult status, don't they? So you think of some of the Bill Evans recordings or John Coltrane recordings, or, as I say, Louis Armstrong. At the time, I wouldn't think anymore, but no, they would enjoy the gig, they would clap and have their beer and then get on with their life. And then all this time later, you think, goodness me, wouldn't it have been wonderful to have been there for that recording? But the people wouldn't have known it was special at the time, I dare say. Helen Forrest, I had the craziest dream. I found this one as well when I was rummaging through the racks in the archives. We always enjoy Helen Forrest, I must admit, and again sang with so many of the great band leaders, Artie Shaw and Benny Goodman, Harry James. However, I thought in this case we'd hear her with Toots Camerata and his orchestra, Long Ago and Far Away.
Then I knew
is here beside me. Long the skies were overcast, but now the clouds have passed. You're here at last. Chills run up and down my spine. Aladdin's lamp is mine. The dream I dreamed was not denied me. Just one look and then I knew that all I longed for long ago was you.
Oh, it's a bit of all right, wasn't it? Helen Forrest duetting with Dick Himes there, and Toots Camerata and his orchestra. Great voice. I mean, they go very well together, Helen and Dick. And Toots Camerata, he's an interesting character as well. He, again, was knocking around until the early 2000s, I think he died. And he's one of those names where you might not trip off the tongue that readily, but goodness, when you look at his track record, he's, again, been everywhere, did pretty much everything. His real name, Salvador Camerata, but he was Salvador Tutti Camerata, and so became Toots, of course, to everyone. And studied music at the Juilliard School, and then as an early player, he was a trumpet player, and played with the likes of, unknowns such as Jimmy and Tommy Dorsey or Benny Goodman, sort of low-ranking players like that, and eventually became the lead trumpet and arranger for Jimmy Dorsey, arranging things like Tangerine and Green Eyes. And then he also did arranging for Glenn Gray and the Casa Loma Orchestra, and some arranging for Benny and Louis Armstrong, arranging for Bing Crosby, Nancy Sinatra, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Duke Ellington. You get the gist of it, don't you? One way or another. Became very good friends with Sir Edward Lewis, the CEO of British Decca, back a bit later on in his days, and they founded London Records with the aim of distributing classical music from the United Kingdom in the States. And then in later life, in the late 50s, Walt Disney hired him to form Disneyland Records and be the musical director and producer for the label there. And Camerata suggested Disney build his own recording studio, but Disney declined and instead encouraged Toots to build his own. And in 1958, he purchased the first building, an old auto repair shop on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, of course. That became the location of Sunset Sound Recorders, and he produced over 300 albums there during his 16 years with Disney. Not bad going. But he wasn't finished yet. In the 1980s, he purchased the Sound Factory, previously owned by David Hassinger. And like the Sunset Sound Studios, the Sound Factory became one of the top recording studios in Hollywood. And it's been used by, Linda Ronstadt, Ringo Starr, Belle and Sebastian, Bette Midler, Dolly Parton, Elvis Costello, Kiss, Van Halen, Kenny Rogers, on it goes. Another one of those polymaths, would you call him? It's just, you always feel like you've achieved nothing, don't you, when you see the track record of some of the people who feature on Sweet and Swing, who a lot of people now wouldn't even be able to name. And you look at what they achieved in their life, and you look at what you've achieved in your own life, and you think, how did they do it? How have I managed to be so useless for 60 years? Oh dear, best not dwell on it. Let's have a bit of Danny Polo. Yeah, I haven't had Danny Polo on the programme for a long time. I'll put that right straight away.
Take one fresh and tender kiss, add one stolen night of bliss. One girl, one boy, some grief, some joy. Memories are made of this. Don't forget a small moonbeam, fold in lightly with a dream. Your lips and mine, two sips of wine. Memories are made of this. Then add the wedding bells, one house where lovers dwell, three little kids for the flavor. Stir carefully through the days, see how the flavor stays. These are the dreams you will savor, with some blessings from above. Serve it generously with love. One man, one wife, one love through life. Memories are made of this. Memories are made of this. Memories are made of this.
They are indeed the wonderful Petula Clark. Great recordings, actually, from this, from our friends at Avid. Not 4, count them, 5 classic albums on 2 CDs. That's not bad going, is it? So we've got Pet Clark Sings. Didn't spend too long thinking about the title for that one. Zing Went the Strings of My Heart. That's a better title. Pet Clark Sings. What else have we got? In Hollywood, In Other Worlds, and A Date with Pet. We're here and there. You Are My Lucky Star is one of the other albums. A Date with Pet was the album. We've just taken that one from Memories Are Made of This. Yeah, you remember that one, don't you? Good stuff. And a good voice she had as well. Before that, Danny Polo. Very fine indeed, with his trio, Montmartre Lone. We don't feature Danny that often. We'll do that a bit more. We did mention one of the greats of this music earlier on, en passant, as they say, Benny Goodman. And also, another great, I was looking at that, and I was going to play a bit of Benny, and then right next door to the track I was looking at was this one. So we'll play Benny next week, shall we? But I thought, I was looking at a post from someone recently of a full-cooked breakfast and commenting on it. Someone who likes to post lots of pictures of full-cooked breakfast as they travel around the UK. I'll save his embarrassment. But yes, Fats Waller and his orchestra with the wonderful Fat and Greasy.
Fat and greasy, fat and greasy. While he's sitting there, chunks of fat hangs over his chair, oil just oozing from his hair, fat and greasy as a grizzly bear. They say the sweet perfumes are made from fat, but not the kind that comes from this greasy cat. There's fragrance in his clothes,
but tain't like what you ever smelled in a rose. Oh man, that fool is bad and breezy, hot or cool he's bad and breezy, head to heel he's bad and breezy. Oh, a big fat greasy fool, yeah. Big fat liver lips, shakes like jelly round his hips. He's a waddling, wiggling shame with his big fat what name? Took that gal to a dance one night. It was called a name. When she got through dancing with this cat, oh man, she didn't smell the same. Oh my.
The inimitable Fats Waller with the wonderfully entitled Fat and Greasy. He's another one of those characters I would have loved to have seen live. I think a Fats Waller gig could surely not have failed to be entertaining. He's just a great entertainer, a wonderful pianist, great composer as well, copyrighted over 400 songs. Many of them are co-written, which people forget, of course, with his closest collaborator, Andy Razaf, who described his partner as the soul of melody, a man who made the piano sing, big in both body and mind and known for his generosity, a bubbling bundle of joy. And that's the way he came across pretty much, well, I think to everyone, really, didn't he? It's likely, of course, he composed far more than that, the songs he's actually been credited with, because when he was in financial difficulties, was not infrequent, he had a habit of selling songs to other writers, and then the other performers would claim them as their own. He died tragically young, of course, at the age of 39 from pneumonia, and was the seventh child, I was just looking a little bit about his history, the seventh child of 11. 11 children! I mean, yeah, you can't even think about it, do you? Born to Adeline Lockett Waller, who was also a musician, and of course his father, the Reverend Edward Martin Waller, a trucker and also a pastor in New York City. And Fats himself started playing when he was just 6 years old, playing the organ at his father's church by the time he was 10, and his mum gave him his first lessons. And my word, wouldn't it have been great to have actually seen him live, particularly as apparently he had a great habit of sometimes, when he was in a good mood, getting up from the piano stool, waving his considerable derriere at the audience and announcing, "It's Fatsy Watsy." That's about it for another week. I say another 2 weeks, really, because of course we alternate these days with our sister programme Jumping In, the best in modern and contemporary jazz with Brother Chris. That will be on next Friday. We'll be back, of course, here with Sweet and Swing and myself, H, in 2 weeks' time. Don't forget, the podcasts are all there on the website or via your favourite podcast provider. If you need a fix of Sweet and Swing in between, dip in and enjoy. Until next time, cheerio.
La 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 la.